Out of respect for your time, yes, this is being recorded. Good flag for that. But yeah, out of respect for Representative Barno's time, I think we will kick it over to him. Thank you, Representative. Appreciate you being able to talk to our group and join us for Great Outdoors Day and our lunch panel between the Washington Recreation and Park Association and the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Coalition. I will kick it to you if you want to speak a little bit about the capital budget and some WWRP funding, potentially the youth athletic facilities funding, aquatic lands. Yeah, I'll kick it to you since I know your timing's tight.
Yeah, thank you very much. And sorry to have to talk quickly and get moving. We are voting on the floor right now, but we're in the middle of capital budget development. What is really very good to see is that not only is there a commitment, I think, from both chambers, but from the governor's office to continue investing in aquatic lands, parks, youth activities. We need to, and I think, you know, the last couple of years with COVID magnified an issue that was already going on, which is we're not investing enough in the quality of life type things in our smaller communities for families and kids, which also have substantial economic benefits, whether it be tourism or just quality of life, getting downtown and going to a park and enjoying it. So I think what we'll see in the capital budget as we go through development, and you can see really from the governor's initial budget, was there's a continued investment in those types of things, making sure aquatic lands funding goes back to those lands to preserve them, looking at youth activities and investing in parks and sports complexes and things that will, you know, extend seasons and provide tourism and provide quality of life type activities. So I mean, the long story short is I think there's going to be a commitment from both chambers as well as the governor's office to continue those investments. And I've always been very supportive of those, you know, as a dad of two kids who are involved in way too many sports and we do too much hiking sometimes, I feel. We're always really supportive of the outdoors and what we do. Whether it be large parks, community parks, or even just recreation fields for sports teams. So I will continue to advocate that we continue those investments, and hopefully we'll see funding levels that are pretty consistent throughout from A to Z back into the communities.
Thank you, Representative. Really appreciate that. And so you all know on the call, Representative Barno is the Assistant Minority Floor Leader and the Capital Budget Assistant Ranking Member. So he's in the room when we're having these discussions on capital budget, and appreciate your support, being a big supporter of all outdoor recreation and a lot of our programs where we seek grant funding to get a lot of these projects around the state funded. So appreciate
I can tell you every time we go through budget development, everybody always looks at me and I'm like, well, can we add a few more projects in? So I'm always advocating for the outdoor projects. And you can be rest assured, they're probably tired of me saying this, but you know, with the little kids I have and the sports we coach and the investments we make, it is so important for every community. So you got an advocate in me, and I want to thank you for inviting me and continuing to educate all our legislators about how important these projects are.
Thank you, Representative. We encourage you to keep asking for those couple more projects. We appreciate your support, and we'll let you get back to the floor, but thanks for taking the time today and really appreciate all your advocacy and efforts. Thanks again, everybody, for joining. We are at the Great Outdoors Day lunch panel with our legislators. We have a big list of legislators that are going to be speaking to us today. Unfortunately, as you just heard, both the Senate and the House are on the floor voting on bills. So we're going to kind of have to probably go off script a little bit and take legislators as they come. Representative Ryu, Representative Barkis should be up next. But again, they're on the floor voting on bills, just like Representative Barno was. He hopped in the hallway to take a call from his phone. So appreciate him doing that. I'll pause there. How's everyone's meetings going? Are meetings going well? Is everything going all right for everyone so far today? Good. Seen a lot of thumbs up. as long as these grant funding programs are big enough for all of our projects, we'll be good to go. Job well done today, right?
I think, there has been definite enthusiasm, I think, in the early meetings where, just like Abarno mentioned, that they're seeing how important having the active lifestyle and being out in the parks has been for them and their constituents over the last couple of years. So I think it's good that we're able to build on that and that they have that perspective coming in. Do you have a sense of, I guess, how much competition or pressure they're going to be feeling in the capital budget process that would make it a challenge for them to support these initiatives and sustaining the investment into parks and outdoor recreation?
And that's a good question, Roxanne, and hopefully we'll be hearing from Representative Tharinger and Senator Mullet here in a few. They're both the capital budget leaders in the House and the Senate. A lot of it's tied to the operating budget, right? How big that bucket is for the capital budget and bonding capacity and things of those nature. So definitely not quite the budget atmosphere that we've had the last. I mean, obviously there's a little dip during COVID, but after that, revenues had consistently been up with a lot of federal funds and stimulus, and obviously our state's heavy on sales tax revenue, so that makes a big difference when folks are spending money. So I think a lot of the legislators, operating budget writers, capital budget writers are a little bit weary of not thinking that this nice funding revenue has continued to be steady, that it might be a little bit of a downturn in the next 2 or 4 years. So I think budget writers are being cautiously optimistic on how big the pots can be. So definitely something we're gonna have to navigate and deal with this legislative session, which we haven't really had to in the last couple of years.
Representative Tharinger said today that the capital budget was constricted, and one of the biggest competition is the second hospital that behavioral health hospital that they have to build, and that's coming due and is very expensive. So yeah, we got that perspective. At the same time, I think people are being very optimistic about some of our levels given those constraints. So that's kind of nice to hear too. It's like Trevor, Fred's got his hand up.
Yeah, Fred, please.
Thanks, and appreciate being able to join you. I'm obviously somewhat new to the group here. I'm very new to the group, but I'm also dealing with tourism promotion and the need to make up for that funding gap as well. They have those dedicated resources to hotel motel tax, stuff like that, but authorizations have to be given to do that. But I'm one of the things I'm concerned about is promoting of the outdoor tourism. That's where outdoor rec and tourism start clearly overlapping, and I think somewhat maybe competing for money. I'm just wondering how much coordination is being made to try to show how these efforts could be supportive of each other and making the case for filling the bigger pot.
Yeah, that's a good question, Fred, and important that all of us coordinate together and be as complimentary as we can of each other. I know there's a couple of pieces of legislation related to tourism marketing this legislative session, and we're supportive of those. Obviously, we support all of our friends in the outdoor rec space, and tourism is obviously good for the state and good for all of us. So, but coordination, it can be tricky, but a lot of us are complimentary of each other's efforts, and obviously WRPA is with WWRC and all those programs. So it's just continue to stay in touch with each other and supporting each other's ass how we can, and not trying to work against each other, but work with each other to just grow the pod and have funding increased for all.
All right, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm concerned that if we're talking recreate responsibly, and the state is having a hard time just to meet the demands of our own recreators on the outdoors, and here I'm going to come in here and wave the flag, ecology is where it's at, but without the resources in the resource agencies to be able to have deal with their backlogs, no less additional pressures that we begin. I mean, I would love to be able to, really help support those programs so that, we don't, kill the goose with the golden egg.
Yeah.
Totally hear you.
I think the Outdoor Recreation Caucus that meets every Thursday morning that has a member from each caucus is a place that really comes together too, and some coordination happens. So that's good because that's a broader lens. We all have our programs that we're working on, but that's kind of the whole broad lens in that way. And Representative Barkis has been heading that up, but Representative Ryu and Senator Miles and Senator Nobles are leading in that space as well.
Thank you.
For those just joining, both the House and Senate are still on the floor voting on bills, so we're gonna have to kind of hang out and wait to see when folks can join. We got a good list of legislators again. Heard from Representative Abarno earlier at 12:30. Hope to hear from Representative Ryu, Representative Barkis. Hopefully Senator Miles has a chance to join, Representative Tharinger, Senator Schessler, and Senator Mollett. So a good group of legislators. We've had commitments to. Hard to predict the schedule on the floor. Both the Senate and the House are on the floor. I got a TV behind my computer screen that shows the Senate still on the floor right now. So I'm monitoring it as best I can. But again, appreciate y'all being here and joining. I will say too, thanks for joining not only the lunch panel, but just the lobby day in general. Your efforts really do make a difference. You know, it's great to, I think we have 86 or 90 or so meetings with our broad group. So it really does make a difference meeting with I think we're in every single legislative district we have meetings in, maybe one we're missing, but meeting with all I think all 48 of the 49 legislative districts really makes a difference on kind of beating that drum and speaking to the importance of outdoor recreation funding in the capital budget and operating budget. So I appreciate y'all joining and meeting with your legislators, and hopefully you're having fun too. I know it's fun to come down in person. A lot of folks are doing in-person and virtual meetings, but nice to be virtual, kind of hop in and out of meetings and hopefully meet with as many legislators as possible. So again, thanks all for being here.
Looks like Richard has a comment or a question.
Yeah, Richard.
So I just basically was, we're being threatened. I'm Rick Feeney. I'm on the non-motorized committee for Kitsap County, and talked to one of my legislators for District 26 this morning. So basically they're prophesizing possibly a recession this year, which may linger on then for a year or two. Is that going to affect our state budget for the wildlife and forest maintenance and everything that we're looking for in our avenue, in our wildlife and recreation coalition?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it will impact us, and obviously the funding programs of the legislature. It's a lot of that, it's just economic cycles, right? They ebb and they flow, and obviously it's took a little bit of a hit with COVID, and then a lot of federal stimulus kind of helped the state revenues continue to be strong the last few years. But yeah, it's a lot of economists are trying to predict, right? Are we headed into a recession? Are we in a recession? So that does impact the state budget and does impact funding for the capital budget as well. So something we just, again, meetings like today and meeting with legislators in all 49 districts, it just shows how important this is to all of us and all of you. And again, you all are statewide in every legislative district. So it's really, again, the participation is strong today, and really appreciate your efforts on communicating to legislators how important this is to you all and to their communities specifically. Does that help answer your question? A little bit. I don't want to make bold predictions about the economy. Experts do that.
Difficult.
But the capital budget is directly tied to how much revenue comes into the state. That's how they size the capital budget. So when that revenue declines due to a recession, then the capital budget tends to decline as well. And then, of course, if the operating budget declines, then they start cutting programs. So like Trevor mentioned, getting that federal money is really what held them together, but that federal money is also going away. And so that funding can't sustain programs that they built. So we're hearing on the operating side too, that they're saying already with collective bargaining agreements and the programmatic commitments they already made, in that 4-year outlook, they're not having more money. They're not really looking to do new programs, except for example, in the climate area, because the Climate Commitment Act passed, and then they have a whole new revenue source in that area.
See a question in the chat here. Thank you, Mike, and really appreciate that. Next budget forecast should be in March. State gets kind of quarterly revenue forecasts, and that's when we'll start to see proposals from the House and Senate. I'll just talk a little bit about process. The governor releases his budget proposals in December prior to the legislature adjourning in January. So the governor released his operating capital transportation budget proposals. I think it was on December 16th or 17th of last year. So that's when a lot of legislators ask, what was in the governor's budget? What was in the governor's proposal? You might be getting that question in some of your meetings today. So the governor releases his budget proposal, and the legislature, both the Senate Ways and Means Committee and the House Appropriations Committee, as well as the Transportation and Capital Budget Committees, had hearings on those budgets. Folks came and testified to those budgets. Now kind of discussions kind of go to the legislature, right? The House will release their proposals, and the Senate will release their proposals in probably about middle of March, after that next state revenue forecast. So they have the most up-to-date current numbers. And they'll release again operating, transportation, and capital budget proposals, and then they'll be released to the public, and they'll hold public hearings, and then they'll negotiate to finalize before the legislature adjourns in April. April 23rd is the last day of the regular session. So right now is a great time to be meeting with these legislators as these kind of operating, transportation, and capital budget negotiations are ongoing. So this is really good timing. Not that they're on the floor today to miss this lunch hour panel, but really good timing overall as far as budget negotiations go. And we should have more details here in another 6 weeks or so. James, I see a hand.
Yes, thanks. Appreciate that. I wanted to piggyback on a conversation by both Fred and Majken, and this is kind of expanding our footprint. I'm on the board of the Peninsula Trails Coalition, the organization behind the Olympic Discovery Trail. And we bring in a number of tourists who want to travel along the trail similar to the Danube River. And we also are active transportation. So I was particularly interested in what Majken mentioned earlier surrounding climate. Might be kind of one area that could be immune from potential budget impacts, and any additional information surrounding that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks for the comment, James. And I know Mike and Teresita both work a lot more in that department than I do, but yeah, of course, no, Climate Commitment Act is very relevant to what we all do, and that revenue will be coming into the state as a lot of that legislation that was passed a year or two ago. Revenues will start being collected into the state, and there's certain stipulations on how that funding needs to be spent. A lot of it's dedicated to transportation. A lot of that was negotiated in the transportation package that passed last year. I think it's about 5 billion of the 15 or 16 billion of the CCA funds that are coming into the state. So no, thanks for the comment, James. Definitely we'll continue to track that revenue and how that's spent, because yeah, a lot of it needs to be spent on climate related activities. And obviously what we all do is related to that. So good flag. Any other questions, folks? Feel free to raise your hand or drop in the chat. Again, I still see the Senate's looks like they're working on an online voter registration bill, which is always a fun topic to discuss. So again, we'll wait to see when legislators can join, and we'll kick it to them and hopefully hear some more comments from them shortly.
Trevor, just as a follow-up to James, and definitely we'll keep our eye for a legislator that pops in, is I think both the Washington Recreation and Wildlife and Recreation Coalition and Washington Recreation Parks Association list, in addition to the capital budgets, have a number of bills that we are following, because I think they do exactly as James talked about, have a chance to really align the work that is being done in our system, knowing that parks and outdoor recreation is such a strong part of the economy. So the more we tie with that tourism, the more we tie to the climate benefits that come from the natural resources that we are conserving and protecting. And the fact that you do have destination sites in your systems that can show that your location is one that is drawing people into the state to do that tourism, to bring in sales dollars. That is where it anchors not only the direct allocation, but the ability to share in some of these other pots of information or pots of resources to support the operations of these amazing parks and trail systems that we have.
Yes, thank you, Roxanne. And with that, I see that the good Representative Tharinger has joined us. House Capital Budget Chair. Thank you, Representative Tharinger, for joining us. Appreciate it. I know you're busy today and you were on the floor voting on bills, so really appreciate you joining us. Quick background for the group. Representative Tharinger is from the 24th Legislative District, kind of the Jefferson County area, chairs the Capital Budget Committee in the House, and is also on the Appropriations Committee. Representative, thank you for joining us. You got members from the Washington Recreation and Park Association, as well as the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Coalition here on the call, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on the state of the capital budget. A lot of questions tied to how the capital budget's looking now that, you know, we might be heading into a recession here in a couple months. So I will kick it over to you for any comments on that. And again, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Glad to be here, Trevor. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I know a lot of you on the call, and I guess I kind of give you my elevator speech of the capital budget. Some people have heard this, and so it might be repetitive. You know, we had really robust budgets, both operating and capital, over the last couple biennium, thanks particularly to the federal money that came our way. But that is no longer the case. And as Trevor mentioned, there are, you know, some economic headwinds. We don't know their velocity. And so there's some caution, I think, in the budgeting process. But that being said, these programs, and you guys have been talking about the importance. One of the things, I mean, COVID highlighted so many things, right? But one of the things it highlighted is how important it is to get outside. And for health, both mental and physical health. And, you know, it's more difficult to catch a virus when you're outside hiking on a trail or playing in a park. And so there's a lot of benefits for, you know, for investing in these programs. But this capital budget, as some folks I've mentioned to, kind of my operative word is constricted. Mainly because we have, again, not that we don't have the federal money that we've had, and we have some investments we need to make as a state, particularly in a forensic hospital down in Stillicum. That's about an $880 million investment. So when you look at a $4.2 billion capital budget, that's a pretty big chunk. We're trying to figure out how to spread that out over a couple biennium without adding too many additional costs, so that we don't take that full hit in this budget. But that's tricky. We've got a court case that's driving some of that. So, I mean, there's just some challenges we face. As you know, the governor has really, you know, highlighted, I think, the need for housing and having robust investments there. So yeah, constricted is kind of the word, but again, I think you know, the importance of what WWRC does and the WWRP program is, you know, has really gained a lot of, I think, bipartisan support. So we're hoping to do, you know, a pretty robust number. And since I've been chair, I think, of capital budget the last 7 years or so, we've been, that investment's been going up. The government put in 120 million. I think we've been sort of touching the 100 million mark for the last couple of biennium, which is historically, except for one sort of outlying year, that's been a good number. So we're really trying to see if we can reach the governor's number in our budget. I'm not sure we'll be able to go above that, and it's, to be honest, it'll be a challenge to hold that number with some of the other things. But as we go through our budget this year, our pencils are a little sharper, and so we're trying to you know, maybe not fund things that can be, you know, postponed or set aside for maybe the next biennium or the supplemental. But I think this program is so important, as for the reasons you guys know, and I sort of highlighted that, you know, we hope to be, you know, again, pretty robust in this area. So with that, I guess I'll take some questions from folks, if that's what you want to do, Trevor.
Yes, we got time for any questions, couple questions, and I know we have Representative Ryu here to chat as well. But yeah, if anyone has any questions for Representative Tharinger, feel free to raise your hand and we can call on you and field those, or drop them in the chat.
How does this tie into the president's can't remember the name of the law, but the funding that he's given out to our development and you know, things like that?
Yeah, good question. So I think you're talking about there's a couple of, there was the infrastructure bill, the bipartisan infrastructure bill is called the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the IIJA. And that was a year or so ago. And then last year they passed the IRA, which was the Inflation Reduction Act, which has a lot of dollars for, you know, for climate stuff. And then we also, I guess on the positive side of the ledger, there is the Climate Commitment Act, which will be generating some funds that, you know, can be used for in the capital budget, particularly in what we call the naturals. So in DNR, Fish and Wildlife, and some of the salmon restoration, you know, categories that are in RCO. So that would relieve some of the pressure on our bonds if we move that money around. So it adds some complexity, but I guess the good news is it does add dollars. So we'll be looking at that and hopefully be able to, you know, to free up some of our bonding capacity to meet some of these other needs. But it's a good question. And we're working on that right now. Our staff is doing a really good job of seeing where, you know, we don't want to leave any of that federal money on the table. So if there's a state match, that we want to be able to, you know, provide that match so that we get that funding.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Well, Representative Tharinger, again, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. We know you're running around all day today, so thanks for meeting with us and sharing some of your thoughts and comments. And we'll continue to advocate for WWRP and appreciate your support. And I know you'll get as much in there as you can for us. So thank you.
Yeah, no, and yeah, I appreciate your advocacy and the work you guys do with the coalition that's built around this. And I think, again, you're seeing that work realized in numbers that are pretty solid for the WWRP program. So, all right.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the
Thank
rest
you
of
for all
your
your
day.
support. Okay, we will jump right over to Representative Cindy Ryu, who I think is here. There she is. Representative, thanks for being here. I will do a brief intro for you so folks know who you are. Representative Ryu is the 32nd Legislative District. She is the Outdoor Recreation Caucus co-chair, also the chair of the Innovation Community and Economic Development and Veterans Committee. It's a mouthful there. And also on the Appropriations Committee. Representative Ryu is the sponsor of our $5 million M&O ask for the Washington Recreation and Park Association, and obviously a big supporter of the outdoors as well. So Representative, thank you for your time, and I will kick it over to you to share some thoughts and comments on capital funding items, outdoor recreation, budget policy, whatever you like to discuss. So thanks for being here.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. Thank you for your patience. We had a floor session until not that long ago, and I'm sure every other member is starving right now. So I took a couple of bites. So so glad that Representative Tharinger got to talk a lot more about funding, because I'm sure you already heard that there are constraints on the dollars that are available this year. And so, you know, just setting our expectations, and I describe it as every week we're being reset on our expectations. And, you know, anyway, we're not, I'm sure leadership is not trying to, or even, you know, chairs of appropriations are not trying to crush, especially new members' dreams and aspirations. But anyway, just so you are aware of that's the situation. So I am one of the Four Corners co-chairs of the Outdoor Recreation Caucus. I really appreciate everyone who stayed engaged through, let's see, with it, the outdoor funding, dedicated funding roundtable is, I think, what we called it, for 18 months. And then everything that we came up with did not work because they were regressive. And unfortunately, that type of taxing or fees is not very popular, doesn't have the votes in either caucus, actually. So here we are co-leading, and of course, I appreciate the agency leads that are volunteering essentially to help us gather virtually every Thursday morning at 7 a.m. during the session to discuss, for now, of course, the policy bills, and one of which includes one that's in my committee from Representative Shavers, and he's working on, and it's about access to parks by veterans, and the fiscal note was huge. It was too big, and so not only in order for it to move, but also we learned something new, several things that were new. And so he's busy amending the bill right now. And so we probably can't exhibit it out until next Friday, but you will see that. And it should be pretty good. It should make the park, it should help out the parks, and then hopefully some veterans as well. So as you heard, member requests for appropriations are due soon. So I'm sure the Outdoor Caucus staff will start tracking those provisos. And so the capital budget probably already covered on the operating budget, as you heard, local parks maintenance and operation one-time backlog, 5 million, I think is still the number that we are asking for. Obviously, outdoor learning, no child left inside, is very popular and does actually work. And then, of course, the ongoing maintenance and operations specifically for state parks. We are, I submitted it. I may have made some mistakes on it, but I'm sure Owen and others will make sure that we will right size it and get the language correctly. So I am, and by the way, I have quite a few new members on my committee. On the Democratic side let's see, Representative Sen, who also serves as a chair of another committee, as well as on appropriations with me. I already mentioned Representative Shavers, Representative Street, Paul, Cortez, Rule, Donaghy. We are gelling very well together. And so we're looking forward to much more active participation within the outdoor recreation arena. So please feel free to reach out to me. I think I sent you the email address, and then also, of course, any other bill ideas, even for next year, or interim ideas. And I'm sure my members would be more than happy to chat with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Representative Rhee. Really appreciate it. As you all can tell, she's obviously a big champion for all our efforts and requests. And so we thank you for that advocacy, and thank you for the commitment to the Outdoor Recreation Caucus and those 7 a.m. Thursday morning meetings. Those can be tough in a long, hectic session week. So thank you for all your efforts. Really appreciate it. And I know we'll be in touch and going forward. So thank you. Right
No,
on
no
cue.
questions for me? You're gonna let
Oh,
me off
yeah.
easy. Thank you
Yeah,
so
no,
very much.
any quick questions, because I mean, we can't let her off that easy, are we?
Well, real quick, it seems like I'm Rick Feeney up here from Kitsap County on the non-motorized committee. And basically, it seems like we talked with Representative Hutchins from 26. And he was very interested in how we're transporting through Kitsap. And I think that he's on the transportation committee, and I see transportation going hand in hand with what you're doing, with how we deal with the outdoors and everything else. So any feelings on that?
Absolutely. And even though we are unfortunately it's structured in silos because that's how the committees work. But I think you all know, I mean, outdoor is critical, obviously, for tourism and tourism funding, which we are also trying to increase. It is obviously very important for mental health and even physical health, even though I describe it as me being an indoor cat, but all my kids are outdoor, whatever. I have granddogs and a granddaughter, but when they are unhappy, them going outdoors and hiking, including my husband, they come back very happy. And so I know it helps with even family peace. And so, yes, and so the short answer, absolutely. Transportation and how we move, or even access, especially for people of various abilities, right? Being able to access. And even this past weekend when my family flew in from California, and we have a 2-year-old granddaughter amongst us, and we're just doing a 1-mile hike through the woods at Deception Pass, and she was doing great the first half mile. And then the second half was really hard because she wanted to be in the stroller, and her daddy had to carry the stroller and her over all the tree roots. And so we are trying to figure out how do we get ourselves back and everybody back, because that little roadway is closed for the winter. And so that was an option. So she fell asleep. So he had to basically take this large, she's pretty large for her age, sleeping child. Fortunately, she fell asleep and no longer screaming, in his arms, and he's stumbling over the roots. Anyway, so yeah, absolutely. We experienced it this past weekend. So very important.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Representative Ryu, for your time. Really appreciate it. We see that your counterpart, Representative Andrew Barkis, has joined. So we will kick it over to him as your other co-chair of the Outdoor Recreation Caucus. Again, thank you, Representative Ryu, for your time. Representative Barkis, I will do a brief intro to you so folks know who you are. Thank you for being here, of course. Representative Andrew Barkis from the 2nd Legislative District is obviously the Outdoor Recreation Caucus co-chair. Representative Ryu's counterpart in the House Caucus. Representative Barkis is a Transportation Committee ranking member and does a lot of things outdoors. I know he's a big camper and a big golfer and a lot of other outdoor recreation activities. So thank you for being here, sir. Appreciate it. We know your day is clustered and busy. So I will kick it over to you for some comments you'd like to share.
Cool. Well, thanks, Trevor. And it's so good to see everybody this afternoon. Andrew Barkis has been said. And I will echo Representative Ryu was saying, I would much rather be outside right now. It makes me very happy. It is my happy place to be camping and just doing anything. So as those of you who attend the Outdoor Caucus meetings, you always hear me end most of the time and challenge people and say, hey, go hike, go do something, get out. And I think the weather is going to be pretty decent this weekend. So I will be doing the same on Sunday. So I have been co-chairing the Outdoor Caucus for several years. This month, in a couple of days, I'll be celebrating my 7th year in the legislature, which is hard to believe. And I think from pretty much day one, or as soon as I found out there was an outdoor caucus, I kind of raised my hand and said, yeah, I could do that. And so it's been pretty cool. I want to say something real quick, because I don't know who asked the question, but I am the ranking member on transportation. So I do all things transportation. I live in that world, write the budget and policy and such. And there is absolutely a nexus. You can't get to where you want to be if you don't have the roads and services and everything else. Last year was kind of an interesting thing when we put together a little challenging process, but the move ahead plan. And one of the things that came out of that is what has been termed as active transportation. And if you see what has been done there is a significant amount of money that's coming out of the Climate Commitment Act. That's what we call the cap and invest, or cap and trade, if you want to really call it what it is, bill. Whether good, bad, or indifferent, it's going to generate revenue to the state and come into part of it in the transportation arena. So think of your bike and ped and connectedness and projects where you have something where a trail comes alongside. This is where that money is going to be coming from. So that is it's a huge piece in the transportation arena right now, and we're kind of looking at that. So I am happy to see what's going on this year. Not a lot of policy, I would say, to start out with. I mean, when there's some, and it's kind of some stuff that we've seen before. Of course, we're starting to see some of the budget requests coming in. We're still in the policy phase of the legislature right now. Actually, just came off the floor, voting a few bills off the floor. And we'll be dealing in policy through the rest of committee time until we get to cutoff, which I think is the 17th. Which happens to be my anniversary of serving the legislature. Just realized that. We will be dealing with policy and then fiscal aspects. So the budget pieces and the asks, and when I look from the coalition here and some of the different things with the capital budget, are kind of later into the session, when we start to see that all happen. But the advocacy starts now, right? And so we track and we're watching and looking at how these things and what's the priorities and all that other stuff. I'm happy to see, I've looked at the material that was provided. Thank you. Again, a very ambitious ask. You hit it out of the park a few years in a row. I'm not sure about this year, but we'll see. But it's been pretty damn good over the last several years for funding for our outdoors. I'm also thrilled about the work that we did last year with making sure that we had ongoing funding to support our state parks and Fish and Wildlife and DNR. And to see that being put to use. I firmly believe we have one of the best state park systems in the nation. I try to use them all the time. We need more, by the way. If you've tried to make a reservation in a campground, really hard to do. And what I'm really excited, because I met with the governor's office here not too long ago, the next state park, which happens to be in the 2nd district, if you haven't been out there yet, it is open and you can walk around and kind of see what's going to be and the beauty of that surrounding area. And you're literally on the doorstep of Mount Rainier and all the rest up by Elby and Ashford, and the great city of Eatonville. I give a little plug there too. But I'm thrilled to see the funding and that kind of being pushed. Let's get it done. Let's get going on this. Let's get this built. Let's get the camping piece in there. Let's get the Andrew Barkis Reserve spot number 3 put into play so I can use it every weekend. Just kidding. But I will be using that park. I can't wait. So that's really cool to see. But it's also all the other stuff, the trails. And the 2nd district is a huge outdoor mecca because of Mount Rainier and everything else. So we want to make sure that access for all, right? That's a big emphasis point. And we want to be thinking about all of our users, whether it's the WATV group or the outdoor backcountry horsemen or the washing trails, washing bikes and e-bikes. I know a little controversy there, but hey, e-bikes are here. We're going to figure out how to make this work because when you get to my age, it's nice to have that little assist going up the hill. Not going to lie. So we want to make sure that we have access to all that too. And it's pretty cool what technology is doing. Those prices are coming down too as this technology gets better and better and becomes more accessible to many. Let's see, what else can I say here? I think I covered parks and and what we're doing in the Outdoor Caucus. I think that's about it, Trevor. I'd love to take some questions in the limited amount of time that I have.
Yeah,
What we
thank you,
do, so.
Representative. Appreciate it. Looks like and again, appreciate your dedication as well to the 7 a.m. Outdoor Caucus meetings on Thursday mornings. I know I'll see
I
you
won't be
there.
there tomorrow, though. I just FYI. I got
Okay,
kids-
okay. I'll
got
tell the
kids
group.
saying
They're on
that thing. I
mute.
got a conflict on an interview I've got to do. If you haven't noticed, I'm doing a little housing policy these days too. So that's been taking a little bit of my time also, but
Thank you.
yeah, but I
Thank
will
you,
be.
Representative. Looks like Charlie has his hand up for a question.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, Representative, I was interested in your comments about transportation. And there's a project I've worked on for a long time, the wildlife bridges on Interstate 90 east of Snoqualmie Pass, which is not only is it important for the economy and for recreation, but the wildlife movement in that area. If you've driven under that wildlife overpass, it's really quite amazing. But that's only one of dozens that are being built. The problem is that I just found out today that the last piece of it, phase 4, is in the governor's budget, is going to be delayed 5 years. And so as you're looking at the transportation bill, if you would take a look at that, it would be really great as we finish phase 3, which we're working on now,
Sure.
is to move right into phase 4. And that is actually just, the next segment down from that overpass.
No, exactly where. And I can, absolutely, Charlie. There were a lot of shocks when we saw the governor's proposed budget for transportation, especially when it came to projects and priorities. Rest assured, the good chair and I are working through that. We have a lot of work to do to see what it is. And it does boil down to priorities, revenue streams, what the monies are, how we keep these projects going. So it's kind of challenging on that. But I will keep that in mind, and we will be looking at that. I've had a lot of comments from people on, we don't want to see that project delayed or stopped. So as with any of these projects that we're dealing with, so it's just a matter of seeing how we can make that work.
Appreciate your.
You betcha, John.
Any other questions for the good representative? I know he's got to probably get going here shortly, but we'll again ask if anyone has questions. And in the meantime, while y'all are thinking of that, again, thank you, Representative, for sponsoring a lot of our outdoor recreation asks. Of course, the WWRP.
There's one more thing. I forgot one thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I heard Representative Ryu say it, and we absolutely need to be advocating for tourism funding. So please put some emphasis there. For whatever reason, with this $71 billion budget, we can't seem to carve out a couple $1 million for marketing for, as we all know, the outdoor segment in Washington State is one of the largest revenue generators in the state with everything that we have here. And we were one of the few states that did not have an active tourism situation. It's one of the first things I worked on when I got in the legislature was the Tourism Alliance, and it's in place. It needs funding. When it fired up, of course, COVID hit. That didn't help. But now more than ever, I mean, now that things are open back up, and we really need to be looking at that because of how important it is to our communities and all the areas that are surrounding these things. We know what the impact of the outdoors is. So if you get a chance, kind of track that. We're going to see how that goes, and maybe be able to secure some funding on that.
Thank you for that. I know Fred had a comment on that earlier. He's got his hand up. So Fred, go ahead.
Yes, Representative Barkis, thanks so much for your ongoing support for these efforts, and your connection to the tourism issue is really what I wanted to speak to. We'll be testifying for the Port of Seattle on to this afternoon at 4 on 1258. And but it's the nexus that I've been promoting, more of the ecotourism, the outdoor tourism, and certainly COVID made that the desirable path. But it also showed us how overrun our place can be if we don't have the infrastructure in place to accommodate the growth. And so if we're going to be at the port promoting outdoor rec in the form of tourism, I want to make sure that the maintenance budgets for the agencies that are doing this work. So I kind of see that in the course of me testifying for tourism, I want to be supporting the parks and the maintenance efforts there. And I'm just trying to see about how we can.
Well, and appreciate your advocacy on that, Fred. And there is obviously a nexus on that. I think we have done an outstanding job over the last couple of years of making sure that our parks and everything else are receiving the necessary funding, probably at the best level they ever have been. And also, I also say, you know, we've got to make sure that we are protecting that so that when the economy, it's, you know, we're not in the best of times, we're not in the worst of times, but it's getting it, you know, all indicators say, you know, we got a little bit of a ride ahead of us. And I don't want to see our parks and all these things get cut like it always is. It's the first thing to get cut, right? And so with the tourism piece, it's a generator. It's a generator of revenue, sales tax, and all the other things. So it's kind of a no-brainer. I argue that all the time when it comes to projects and development and getting these things done, because you know that's what generates revenue, right? It works together and it pays for itself. So it's not necessarily a drag on the economy in the sense of the sales tax, you know, the operating budget or whatever, because of what it will generate. And if you look at any other state around us, if you travel to any, which I have, let me tell you, they spend a lot of money on tourism, and it shows because their revenues see that. So, okay, I can take one more, and I gotta
we're
go.
generating revenue, but we're impacting the park. So I want to be able to make the case,
Yeah.
we need to do both.
I hear you, Fred, and I could sit here all day long and go with you. And you know, that's why we've worked on what we've worked on within the context of the budgets for state parks and all the other agencies to make sure that they have the resources more than they've ever had to maintain, support, develop their infrastructure, build more infrastructure, do what it needs to be done. But I don't want to, just be careful not to create a message that all of a sudden will give those who really don't want to spend on advertising for tourism, they'll say, oh, that's a good argument. That we shouldn't do that, because it nullifies the benefit of what tourism brings in. Just look at the one last thing, you know, your port. What happened when COVID hit and the ship stopped rolling into Seattle, right? I had a lot of calls with everything from the aquarium to the Fifth Avenue Theater. I mean, everybody begging for, you know, because nobody was there, right? Nobody was shopping, nobody was there. One of those ships rolls in one time, and those guys could make their year, right? So, okay, one last question, Richard.
Yep.
I was just gonna see what your take on the SGO trail was. Sound to Olympics. The one going through Bainbridge Island and then Kingston down to the Hood Canal Bridge.
Cool. I haven't really followed. There's so many going on right now, but we did do the Outdoor Caucus meeting up in Port Townsend. I thought it was really cool and got to see the Discovery Trail and that interconnectedness. And I think that, you know, one of the things that's happening right now is you're really seeing these overlays of how these trails and this network is connecting, where you can literally ride from, you know, you can ride from one end of the country to the other. I don't know if you know that, or hike it or walk it. That's pretty cool too. But yeah, there's a lot of support going to these, a lot of active groups promoting these trails. And I think that, again, you'll see resources, non-traditional resources available for it too. So
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. I really enjoyed chatting with you today, and we'll see you again. Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you, Representative. Appreciate the time.
You bet.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I know we got about 5 minutes left, and the Senate is still on the floor. So unfortunately, I think we're going to miss our senators today. Senator Mollett, Senator Schessler, Senator Mazzal, capital budget leaders in the Senate, as well as Senator Mazzal is the Outdoor Recreation Co-Chair in the Senate for the Senate Republicans. So I don't think they're going to be able to join. They're still on that last bill. And as you all might know, you all probably know, Senate votes by voice, where the House has an electronic board. So a little bit easier for the representatives to step out and take quick calls. Senate actually has to be there on the floor in person, of course, voting by voice in person. So I'll pause there. If there's any other questions or comments, got a few minutes left. I'll hang for a few minutes, but again, thanks for joining today, and I really appreciate your advocacy today and meeting with all these legislators and members. It does make a difference. Representative Tharinger obviously spoke strongly to our advocacy, and as did the others. And again, really appreciate you guys taking time out of your day today. So
If we have a second, Yvonne, how are you still on? Yvonne Cross?
I'm here.
How's things going for Evergreen?
You're good. We can take that discussion offline between you and me if you want, but things are wonderful at Evergreen. I posted a comment. We're really in that interface of, the regional trail connection to single track trail networks, and of course, deep into e-bike issues as well. I'm meeting with Senator Wilson next Monday. That's brand new to figure out what we can do with his bill and class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes. So yeah, is there specific interest? I'm happy to hang on or connect with you via phone after.
That's okay. I just saw you were there and had things of interest to this. Thanks.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Mike, and any last comments?
No, I was just gonna put in the chat. Thank you, Trevor, you and your team for getting this set up and for being so flexible as they're juggling their schedules. I think we're hearing positive things from some of the Senate budget writers too, so it would have been great to hear from them directly. But Teresita and I, like you, have been meeting with a lot of folks, and I think things are on a positive trend. Hopefully that revenue forecast will not derail that, and we'll keep going towards when we see budgets come out. But thanks so much for having this panel happen.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and thanks everybody. Oh, Fred, go ahead if you had a comment.
I just wanted to say thanks too. I appreciate learning more. And I heard the governor has COVID. So
Yes.
So is this going to be off tomorrow?
The event, to my knowledge, will still be happening. I just don't think that the governor obviously will be able to provide comments to the group. A lot of events there, whether he's there or not. So no, if you're registered, still plan on showing up, of course. Want to have a good turnout there, as I'm sure we will. I know we're at capacity and there's a waiting list as well. So it sounds like it'll be a full room. Just governor, unfortunately, probably likely. I think
we also have Hillary Franz speaking, and people that have
yeah.
heard her, she's excellent. So we won't be without a keynote. We had two, and now we might have one. And then a lot of legislators have signed up as well, including quite a number of new ones. So I think it's going to be a great time to really connect with people. It's been actually, the new folks have been fantastic in their sort of advocacy for the outdoors and willingness. So I'm looking forward to being able to meet people in person that we haven't been able to meet yet, and touch base with folks again that we know.
Excellent. Thanks so much. I got my next one to go to now. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Well, again, thanks everybody for attending, and